So great to have our little Western Board Themed Entertainment Association reunion.
Yes.
Thanks for humbling us with your presence here at the studio.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
You made the trek and in one piece. Mm-hmm. I can't wait to help extrapolate and squeeze your story sauce, Addie, because you have been everywhere. Oh my word. But I wanted to kind of bring everyone back to your inklings of, when you were kind of starting to figure out that you were kind of interested in this outward expression of personality, your own personality. What would you say are those earliest seeds of being interested in?
In costumes?
Yeah.
I grew up in New York till I was about 10 or 11, and my parents were really into the theater, and I spent a lot of time at the Metropolitan Museum of Art and all the museums. And
great parenting.
Yeah, a lot of kids shows off Broadway, just really exposed to cultural arts, which was important. My grandma gave me, costume jewelry and scarves to play with, so I was always dressing up and inventing, costumes for myself and playing a part. So, and after I saw this, The Sound of Music with Mary Martin, I think I wore a tablecloth over my head for about a year, and because I wanted to be a nun, and it was just the beauty of that whole production that really got me. So that was the early inkling. Then I moved to California, film capital.
Yeah.
Went to school, thought I was going to be a veterinarian. That didn't work out. Then went to art history and then took a theater class.
Okay.
And it was kind of a overview, like Theater 101. And and the teacher was really great. And she said, you should be a costume designer because look at this costume design you did at Cal State Long Beach.
State, yeah, so
Long Beach State.
Following footsteps of Phil Hettema, Tony Baxter, Steven Spielberg,
everybody, yeah. Brian Dykstra had been there, and there were exhibits on Star Wars.
Yeah,
for his work in the art department.
Wow.
So she said, change your major to costumes because you can use all your art history and other, knowledge.
So it diverted from just fashion into costumes.
And I just fell in love with theater.
Yeah.
Obviously, I knew that was really what my calling was, theater, because of my early life. And although I loved my theater education, my goal was to be a film designer. Mm-hmm. Really wanted to be a film designer. Spent a lot of time at Cal State, took other courses at other schools to just enrich myself, and really wanted to get as much knowledge as I could. And then started, I worked and sewed at, sweatshops and, Center Theater Group. And, so I worked my way up the ladder. I really started just sewing. And then I saw a music video.
MTV.
I saw a music video and I said, that's what I want to do.
I think we were talking Thriller was.
Yes, Thriller was so hot right then, right?
I wanted to be a music video director.
Of course,
and maybe at a film school. So
I decided that's what I want to do. And I just put it in my head, I want to work with Michael Jackson. I put it out to the universe, and sure enough, about 6 months later,
the
universe responded, and the costume designer Betty Madden called me up, and I'd already been working in the industry, sewing and in costume shops, and she said, "We need you on Captain EO," and so I started with making the costumes actually, and then she brought me to the set because I was in the wardrobe union 705. And so I worked on the set, and I actually ended up being Michael Jackson's dresser, or close by. He had a male dresser, but I was on the set with him mostly, making sure his cape, making sure the fuzzball character was in the right spot and things like that, helping with the mics and it was just magical. It was a wonderful group of people, again, just like theater, everybody, it was really more like a theatrical production because it was. George Lucas was there. Francis Ford Coppola was amazing to work with. I sat near him, so the DP would let me look through the camera lens to see what I was seeing, and it was 3D. So I learned camera shots and the camera lingo, which was really good. One shot of this. Anyway.
What a foray into themed entertainment.
And
music.
Film, videos. And there were famous people came to see him dance.
Wow.
And so that was really wonderful. We had, it was a good group of people, and we worked. I even went off and did the special effects with him at DreamQuest.
Oh, wow.
So because they didn't have CGI, that transformation was actually costumes and then models.
Wow.
So we went from a white suit to a gray suit to silver suit, and went. So.
Well, Smooth Criminal is, I think, one of Michael Jackson's trademarks, right? That lean.
Yeah, and then I did other things between, but then I came back to do Smooth Criminal with Betty Madden. I was an assistant designer, and it was great, but the lean has always been a secret until I think they let it out now. Yeah. They did the dance moves, and he was amazing to be in the room with while he's dancing. The energy that just spewed out of him, and I had a lot of dance experience.
Yeah.
It was just amazing. So at lunch break, I took all the shoes for the male dancers, and I took them over to the shoe guy in Hollywood. He changed out their soles while I waited to have little metal things that clipped into the floor of the set. And while I was doing that, they were changing it. So the next thing you saw was the guys sliding their feet into them, which was part of the choreography, and then doing the lean. And then after the scene was shot, I ran back and got the soles, the shoes resoled, and that was the lean, which is just such an amazing thing. So that was really fun. I mean, I sewed his armbands on. I got the first glove jeweled. I mean, I took it to the jeweling place, and he was really great to work with. We were friends. So
one of many legends you've gotten to work with.
I mean, I was devastated when he passed, and as a lot of people were. And,
imagine.
Yeah. So.
So there's kind of this digital media era, and then you transition to live entertainment. You got a call from Radio City.
Yeah, I was working at Bob Mackey's studio, Elizabeth Courtney, doing fittings with him because I did a lot of TV work with him, and I got a call there just because it had been on my resume, so they were looking for me because I had moved for Radio City Music Hall. And I remember saying, why are they calling me? And actually Bob and Pete Menefee had recommended me for the job of director of costumes and wardrobe. So they flew me to New York. I interviewed, and then of course I'm a New Yorker, so they took me to lunch at the Rainbow Room. I walked across the stage and remembered where I'd sat the last time I'd been at the musical. Wow. With my aunt who took me to the show. So, because they had shows before the movies back in the day. So I took the job. My husband and I moved to Connecticut, and I commuted in, which was really kind of a nice thing. It's the first time I read a book in years. And we settled in Connecticut, and I did Radio City for a few years, and then I left and did freelance with Anthony Esparza. Because I had worked with him at Landmark in Tokyo, and a lot after
we
that.
skipped that whole.
We skipped Tokyo. We skipped going to Japan.
Puro Land. I can't tell you how many people started.
I know, Sanrio Puro Land. I mean, and also my schooling, we skipped over so many people went to my school, I guess, because, we sort of covered it, but I did my thesis with Nancy Cerruto. She was sets and lights, and I was costumes and, wigs really, but there was a wig person, Vicky. So, anyway, I've just worked with so many people, and I can't tell you how important it is to keep those connections going as long as you can. Cliff Warner was another one I went to school with. And so fast forward.
All these founders and
right. You know, and it was just, we were just sort of a magical generation that came and rode the wave of themed entertainment, you know, and of course my husband was part of it too. Yeah. Disneyland for 9 years. He worked for Landmark and then WGI as an Imagineer.
Yeah.
So then Radio City, I left Radio City and started doing freelance costume design. And my husband was working on Metreon with Bob Weiss and Sony. So
the rollout of one of the first urban entertainment location-based attractions.
It was the first.
Was Where the Wild Things Were, Maurice Sendak was one of the anchors there.
Yes. And my husband was working with Maurice, you know, and Maurice became a family friend because he's just such a wonderful man. And then he called me up and said...
Happened to be your neighbor, right?
Well, he lived in a few towns over, but close enough for a drive. And it's funny, he called one day to look for Scott, and that's how we got to talking. And he said, well, who's your favorite children's book illustrator? And I said, actually, Hilary Knight. He goes, thanks a lot. I go, no, I mean, my kids love you, but I'm a little too old to have, you know, and my brother, but... You know, so Hilary Knight was the illustrator for Eloise, the Eloise books. So I'm talking to him and he asked me, can you help me? Because Sony was kind of driving him crazy with his licensing. So he and I created a company called Sendak Workshop. And for the next about 15 years, along with my freelance costume design, I was his director of licensing, executive director of licensing for Sendak Workshop. And my property was Where the Wild Things Are and some of the other, you know, things. But then when they started to do the movie, I became just classic Where the Wild Things Are. So I actually am the keeper of all things wild things. He and I did a style guide that nobody has, what their voices should sound like, and drawings that he did for me, and you know, colors, and you know, so
another legend.
Yeah, and he was wonderful, and he was like a father to me. You know, he said, "You're the daughter I never had." You know, and so we were super close. So that was that, and then he retired, and Phil Hettema asked my husband to come back to California and work for him at the Hettema Group. And then I said, okay. So one thing I wanted to do in my always learning about stuff is I wanted to understand more about themed entertainment. I'd been working with my husband on his company, but I decided I needed to really understand the in-depth. So my good friend Cliff Warner invited me to become a coordinator at ThinkWell, which I did. They gave me five projects to coordinate at once, which was insane. And so I learned a lot, and I learned about all the phases of themed entertainment, you know, more in depth, concept, you know, schematic, you know. So we moved back to California, and I invited some of my friends. I had lunch with them at a USITT convention, you know, and I said, I'm going to start a company because none of the studios or these companies have on-site costume departments anymore. Nobody does that anymore, like the old days when they had a studio costume shop. Does anybody want to do that with me? You know, is anybody interested? Because what I realized is we were all bidding against each other on jobs. Phil hired me to do the wardrobe for The Link, and the woman, Karen Weller, who became my partner, actually already worked on The Link and did the costumes for the film that was going to play in the queue line.
Wow.
So it was, you know, it just seemed, you know, like the right thing to do. Yeah. So we formed a design and development company called The Costume Connection, because it's all about connections. Mm-hmm. It's all about your networking. And we've done quite well. As, you know, I mean...
Almost becoming the go-to source.
Kind of the go-to. Yeah. We've done a lot for Herschend.
So character, entertainment, on stage, walk around.
Yeah, we can do
wardrobe.
We can do it from
Uniforms, right?
from concept all the way through to first, to load in. We know master planning of costume shops. We know budgeting. We know, so.
And having worked on the project coordination side and being involved with the full phases, you've helped educate us spatial storytellers how to integrate,
how to incorporate
costuming at all.
Costuming, yeah, because costume people or costume designers are really good in concept because, I always say no kid goes home from a theme park and wants to be a castle. So architecture is great, but it's that street atmosphere and it's those characters that really bring life. They bring the story to the space, and story is so important. For Thinkwell...
How is story...
Yeah.
Can you flesh out the linkage of story to costuming?
Yeah. I would have been a fashion designer because, of course, that's the obvious thing to do with your talent.
Probably spend a little bit of time thrifting. And
Oh, yeah. I only wore thrift store clothes. So... How
many antique shoes?
75 pairs.
Whoa.
Yeah. I mean, when I was teaching, because I taught while I was working on my master's degree, I never wore the same pair of shoes twice, and the kids would always bet, that she's going to wear them twice or not. So, but yeah, I think a story is so important. A good example was Thinkwell was designing for Ferrari because they were doing the park in Ferrari, and it was a tie-in with Fila. And they had their interns designing what ended up looking like furry pajamas for the Cavalier, the horse. And I was just kind of strumming my fingers on my desk, doing my coordination thing. And finally, I think it was Randy Ewing looked up and said, "Oh, you have a costume background. Would you like to take a crack at this?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." Went home. Came back the next day, nailed a beautiful, I should send you the costume.
Yeah.
But they didn't have a story for the character. So the first thing I had to do was create a story for the character. And I gave him a name, and I named him after one of my son's friends. And he was, the kid was half French and Italian. So I gave him sort of a Guido sort of thing, because this is an Italian brand. And I put him in the track, so he had this attitude, and he was the great grandson of the original Cavalier that's on the front of the Ferraris. And that then I could work on the character of this face and this horse. I also have a lot of experience with character building, and I always think outside the box when I design character costumes. My experience with Maurice taught me how to keep the integrity of a licensed property. I actually did a lecture for Herschend Family Entertainment on intellectual properties and how to maintain that important integrity so that your brand holder allows you to use it in your park or your costumes. So that's, brought me up to doing a lot of things. I did Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer for Herschend, and they're at SeaWorld. And I worked actually with the brand holder, who I went back to Connecticut, and they're based in Connecticut, and to come up with Rudolphs that, and all the characters for Rudolph that look like the characters.
Yeah, like stop motion animation.
Yeah. And then I've done Dalmatian. They're going, "Why do you know so much about Dalmatians?" I go, "Because I've had two." So
convenient.
Because I'd send them all this research and photos and stuff. So I do a lot of research.
Firefighter.
That's for. He originally was named Sparky. Then they decided that might not be a good name, so his name's Lucky. Yeah. And his collar originally was based off of the New York. It was after 9/11. It was based off the New York City Fire Department's dog collar that they had, and. So I've done a lot of characters. Fast forward to working for Thinkwell as a costume designer.
Yeah.
Did SeaWorld Abu Dhabi with my partner as
world's largest indoor theme park.
worked on that for years, many years, and
really elevated the whole SeaWorld brand, really.
Oh yeah, it did, and I'd worked with SeaWorld before with
because it wasn't just about Shamu anymore.
No. So it was really the animals that I designed costumes for really had to match the real thing. I mean, the butterfly really had to be, an Amazon Malay lacewing butterfly, and the praying mantis had to have all of its correct pieces, and
wow.
And so, along with
a lot of ongoing lifelong learning,
right, and because I can read blueprints and elevations, I knew how tall it needed to be, or how tall they could be. We had to hinge the butterfly's wings so it could get down the hallway from the dressing room to the, the director's going, yeah, it's like 20-foot tall ceilings. You can make it as big as you want, but only 9 feet in the hallway. So, and not that wide, like 4 feet wide.
Yeah.
So, that's the kind of stuff you have to, by understanding all aspects of themed entertainment, reading blueprints, understanding, schematic, and
any other examples of where being in the room, thinking about the costuming would have been helpful for the facility designers or the master planners?
Yeah, I was at a company, being a coordinator, and they designed a parade for an indoor theme park in China, and the parade was real oversized, big stuff. It was going to be dinosaurs. And then a couple of days later, I was taking notes in a in a meeting about the master plan and where all the, how much back of house, et cetera. And I saw that they wanted to put the dressing rooms upstairs because it's a mall and it's limited space.
Sure. Limited footprint, yeah.
Yeah, limited footprint. And they had to walk downstairs in their costumes. So I thought about it all day. Finally, as I was leaving, I went up to the creative director of the company and I said, that's not going to work because those costumes cannot walk down that staircase in view of the audience to go to the parade route because they're too big, so you got to rethink this. So
it's a funny visual image.
Yeah. It's like, that's not going to work. They go, oh, we didn't even think of that. I go, I know, which is why in the concept phase, you need a costume person that can tell you stuff like that.
That's great.
And that was the same thing for Abu Dhabi.
So from the epic scale of a SeaWorld Abu Dhabi, which is epic, I think that's one point to convince Bob Iger to do Disney Abu Dhabi. But then to Epic Universe.
Epic Universe. The first thing we did was budgeting for them to try to give them an idea of what wardrobe would cost. Wardrobe being uniforms in the theme park world. And costuming really being entertainment costuming. Sure. So for Abu Dhabi, we did entertainment costumes and character costumes. So all of the atmosphere people and the little shows they did, like the sand artist and jugglers and little vignette things. That was entertainment costume.
Good clarification.
So for Epic Universe, we were tasked with wardrobe for 2 of the lands. Burke, which is How to Train Your Dragon, and my partner did Karen. We split it up, and I did Celestial Park.
Nice, the fun one, the original IP.
Yeah, and it happens to be the one my husband mostly designed with Dale Nation. Yeah. So they put the park back in park.
Yeah.
So it
reminds me of the 1901 Paris World's Fair, kind of where Art Nouveau kind of was. To the universe.
And I work very closely with Dale Mason.
Yeah.
On it, and
legend.
Legend, another master. Yeah, another one of the masters. And he tortured me. I mean,
to
get out of his brilliant head what he really wanted and needed. But we nailed it eventually, and it was wonderful. It's a wonderful park, and I'm sure it'll win a TEA. It's
Well, I mean, we've really done a global journey here from Disney and Japan and back to Middle East and back. But I know you're still in it. By no means are you guys close to kind of closing out a career. But I mean, in terms of insights for kind of the next generation of costumers, including probably your own incoming interns or students
I do like
a field. Yeah, any advice or brain
I like
damage?
to mentor kids, but sometimes they don't want to hear what I have to say, which is education's important. I kind of tend towards theater people because they learn how to collaborate in that discipline. I think that collaboration is a real important part of themed entertainment. And for costume people and anybody in the industry, learning to how to do one thing or your focus really well. Learn to sew, learn to pattern draft. You can't design a costume if you don't have a pattern draft. You know, learn to maintain costumes, work in a costume shop, work in distribution. I mean, there's so many jobs within costuming that people don't even think about. I'm going to be in a panel in a few weeks that's, you know, just about different jobs in costuming for entertainment. And then networking. The people you're going to school with, like for me and you, are the people you're going to work with throughout your career. And they're going to be your touchstone and your go-to. Phil Hettema calls me. Cliff Warner always calls me.
Anthony Esparza
calls me,
mentor.
You know, everybody. Nancy Cerruto called me to help with something, you know, once, you know, could you do this? And it was more of a community outreach thing, but, you know, and I do a lot of that to help, you know, local theaters and things. So, I just say network, you know, learn. I do my own projects by taking a subject and researching it on my own and reading every book about it, you know, so that I can be knowledgeable in different subjects. And I have a huge library of costume books, mostly from used bookstores and, you know, old books.
Yeah.
And,
any favorite old classic Hollywood?
I've got a lot of, you know, I mean, I love old Hollywood. I've got one going.
Berkeley musical.
Well, I've got one called Out with the Stars, and it shows pictures of the stars out to dinner.
I love it.
Love that book.
See, I'm more focused on where they went.
Yeah, where they went. But, you know, but I love it. I have one that's written in Italian that's actually Egyptian costume. That's the most beautiful book. And I got it at a used bookstore at the Pequot Library in Fairfield, Connecticut. So I love the book. There's nothing that compares to it. But I used to go to this place called Acres of Books. I don't know if you remember that in Long Beach. And I have some original first edition 1895 books, Wilcox books. I mean, just, and I'll sit and look at the patterns. There's the, you know, patterning through the ages, and I'm forgetting the name of the author, but I'll just sit and follow it and visualize because she's broken the patterns down. And so.
Well, I know you've done your share of education and mentoring.
Yeah.
And, synergies with SCAD. Have you seen any shifts, even with the rise of the Theme Entertainment Association, the Next Gen program, and some of these theme entertainment programs? Any shifts, good, bad, or ugly, in terms of education and you know, that helps or hurts this aspect of the industry?
Well, you know, I just...
Like, are we overly specialized or
I think
overly tech-driven?
It's not going to be popular, what I'm going to say, but I think that the themed entertainment degrees are a little broad. And I think that that's okay to learn about themed entertainment because, you know, my generation, we had to invent it. There wasn't any school.
Right.
You know, we just had to invent it. I mean, I'm good with budgets and the bookkeeping part of it because I did the accounting for my mom's business, you know? I mean, and it just seemed logical to do it. But yeah, I think you really need to choose especially. I know a lot of the engineering kids do that, and that's really great. And then they get themed entertainment mixed in there.
Got to go deep in something.
Yeah, in something. But
not everybody is going to.
I think if you're going to be a costume person, you have to know how to sew. You have to know how to pattern draft.
Yeah, you don't start in the theater by wanting to be the producer or the director.
No, and a lot of kids come out and think I'm going to be the costume designer.
Right.
I would have loved that, but I knew I wasn't, and that I had to climb a ladder. I actually recently went to a reunion of all of the Smooth Criminal crew and some cast.
Wow.
And I was there with my mentor, Betty Madden, and she just, I'm going, wow, I'm saying, I didn't remember that. Why aren't I in those pictures? She goes, because you were Michael's dresser, and you were, and everybody remembered me, and,
wow.
and she just said that I was so great. And it was like, I was young and new at it. But it's comes from within, being 100%, being mindful of your work and loving it. Like I said, my mom said to me, I can't believe you turned a career into what you love. And I did.
That's the main advice I give my kids. Yeah. Figure out what you love.
And that's what I told all the kids that grew up in my house I mentored, and they're all successful in the creative industry, and the art programs I did in the elementary school. It's like, I've tried to put it out there for everybody, my enthusiasm. So,
well, I'm not allowed to ask which is your favorite kid that you've mentored, but do you have a favorite project, favorite costume that you're allowed to say is your favorite, at risk of offending every other client?
No, it's funny. That's a tough one. The magical thing is when you do a drawing and you choose the fabric and you choose everything and you work with the pattern drafter and the fabricator, when you see that costume come alive, it's the most magical thing. I think my first costume I did in college was for a show, and the first time and the best thing, and I've heard it over and over again, but the actress said, oh, now I get my character.
Wow.
Now I get my character. And even for TV, we would take the purse of the character, because I worked on things like Who's the Boss?
Yeah.
We would pack the purse with the things that person should have, like the lipstick and the powder and the handkerchief and, whatever we thought they'd have, gum, whatever, So if they opened it, they'd go, oh, this is my character. The sunglasses, So it's important to make your characters come alive. And that's all about story, back to story.
Wow.
So, yeah.
Thanks so much, Bonnie. Thanks
You're
for sharing your
welcome.
heart, your passion, your brain damage. It's
Yeah. Oh, there's so much in my mind. I had to review my own resume. like what have I done?
I love it. Well, I'll give everyone else a chance to ask some questions.
Okay, great. I'm looking forward to it.
I think you transferred your favorite bookstore, Acres of Books, to your living room or office or wherever you are. That is impressive.
It goes on and on.
I love it. So, I can't wait to come over and peruse your library one of these days.
And a lot of stuff for Scott too. So
love it.
Anyway,
awesome. Well, what an amazing story and journey, and with the questions have already started stacking up, so I want to get to as many as we have time for. Appreciate your little accessorizing there. What's the little pin you've got going?
Pen. Yeah, my
very
master's
cool.
Pen.
Yeah. I love that. I think you're one of the first masters to actually be intentional enough to actually wear it on the.
I always forget, but I said, "Oh, I better." Makes sense.
I love it. Yeah. So whoever's at SATE or TEA Inspire, make sure you look for those. Cloisons. Yeah, that's awesome. I've got a few questions that have come up around the diversity of what people thought costuming was. Like, for example, just one of the questions, you worked on everything from parades, motion pictures, entire parks. Mm-hmm. How does designing for a moving performer in a parade differ from designing for the camera versus an operational cast member? How do you even are those different categories of product types or services? How do you even, is it totally different for, how similar and how different are those?
Well, a uniform or wardrobe has to be really durable. And of course, it has to fit the story as well. So there is and there isn't a difference. It's just basically the end result. It's always about story. But it's in the manufacture or the production that I think that's what's different. Now, film is different than a live performance because the lighting can change the color of some fabrics. So you always have to check them and, your colors in front of the camera. Blues can look purple, things like that. Some patterns strobe, especially on video. So, you have to really know the whole things in order to do it successfully.
Yeah. Lisa kind of had a variation on that, outside of the different environments, the themed entertainment project versus videos and film. Is there any, generalizations of the differences in working in different cultures or geographic environments?
Oh, absolutely. I always try to be really respectful of the cultures that I'm designing either for or in, and do a lot of research before on the culture. Now with Abu Dhabi, some of the things I did a real deep dive onto the costumes of Abu Dhabi and the names of them and, what the women wore and the history. And then as far as regionally, are you in a cold environment? Are you indoors? Are you outdoors? So you've got to figure that out. I mean, I did mountain climbing stuff, which was all purchased, but, it was for a commercial with my mentor, but still, you've got to think about what's the environment for, what's it called for.
Love it. I've just got to start going down the list here. Question is, costume design sits at the intersection of storytelling and engineering. How do you balance artistry with the durability and performance safety?
Well, that's a really good question. And by having a really good knowledge of all aspects of costuming and design and understanding how it's going to be made and what fabrics and processes are out there, such as sublimation. And that's how you figure out. And yes, costumes are engineered because the butterfly that I talked about in the interview was actually, the wings had to be engineered to fold up to get down the hallway. So that was an engineering problem. A lot of character costumes are like that, engineering. I mean, they're all built on a backpack so that they're, the weight of it is held on the hips of the person. So, yeah. So I hope that answered.
Yeah, I mean, again, kind of related to that, obviously it requires some intense collaboration just in themed entertainment in general, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Collaboration is so important. The company I use for my character costumes and the fabricator is Ryan Rhodes. He is wonderful. But yes, I go there sometimes and he goes, and how do you think I'm going to do this? I go, oh, I know you can do it. I know you can. I
believe in you.
Out. Yeah. So, yeah.
Well, again,
and he always does.
Well, when you have guys that are left, right brain, kind of that motley crew that it takes to pull off this stuff, fabricators, designers, performers, directors. Do you have any advice or secret, kind of brain damage that you've incurred on keeping everyone aligned on the same vision, marching to the same drum beat?
Can you repeat that?
When you've got all the different disciplines, again, left brain, right brain people, do you have any secrets or just lessons learned on how to keep everyone synced up and going in the same direction?
I got it. Well, I'm both left and right brain because I can see the budget and the costs and how to engineer it at the same time that I can see the creative, like, and the fantasy and the story. Yeah. So, I think that when you're collaborating, you hope that you get the trust and respect for everybody in the room and from everybody in the room so that they listen to you. I think it's really important to listen to people who have the kind of experience that my partner and I have, because they're only going to get a better product by, listening to us.
Yeah, kind of building on that phrase, asking if there's any advice you'd give to producers or creative directors who would like to work more effectively with your discipline, with costume designers, like, if you're the boss.
Right. Well, I would like them to understand that bringing the costume designer in early isn't necessarily going to cost any more money, but it's going to make for a smoother process. And having the costume designer collaborate during the blue sky period and concept really is helpful. Even if they don't come back again for another 6 months, a year, it's still good to get them to weigh in to what the client wants. And working with the writers on story, that's really important to do. So you just, I also would like them to understand budgets and what things cost, because they never budget enough. The client wants this, but the accountants want to pay that. And it just isn't feasible. It's just not feasible. So I think like Universal brought us in for a preliminary budgeting exercise. And that was really helpful, because that's the right thing to do. So.
Yeah, I think it's just great wisdom, because you're right. So often that the front end budgeting makes such an impact on the ultimate experience. And if you haven't thought of everyone or don't have everyone at the table, and then same thing as a spatial planner, a master planner, that ground level real estate, is such prime real estate that quite often you think of support functions, wardrobe, costuming, warehousing, that either goes way backstage or above or below that prime ground real estate. And then you have to deal with vertical circulation. You don't want to be building ADA elevators just for,
right.
backstage. So yeah, that's so key.
Well, I also think it's important to talk to somebody experienced about costume shops, because I looked at a master plan once to look at the costume, the layout and the back of house for costuming and distribution. And, the person said, well, I've been using that. I said, how long have you been using this kind of a layout? And he said, about over 10 years. And I go, well, it's all automated now. It's a whole different ball game, so I think you better rethink your layout. So that was.
I'll ask you afterwards who that is, because there's not a lot of people that have been using those templates for 10 years or longer. So
I know.
I know who you're talking about. I love it. So from general, I think we're going to start zooming in. There's some people that are very fixated on Michael Jackson and on some of your specific costume pieces. But just again, staying a high level, any advice for someone looking to transition again between disciplines, from costuming and theater and film, for example, to wanting to costume in themed entertainment? Whether it's relational advice, networking advice, technical kind of expertise, differentiators?
Well, you need to be really knowledgeable, of course. I didn't feel like I learned enough pattern drafting. So I went to FITM and took extra pattern drafting classes at night. I already knew how to sew, but, I honed those skills too. And I probably sent hundreds and hundreds of resumes to every designer or anything I could do, and took every job that came along, non-union, and then eventually got in the union as a costumer. So it's real perseverance. And then it's if somebody gets a job, then you call them. It's a networking thing, really. And there's no magical way to get in. There's a lot of internship programs out there, like with Disney and Universal. It's a good way to get your foot in the door. They, once they'll hire you sometimes if you prove yourself during an internship. But, I don't know, you just need to persevere. It's tough. So you have to make yourself be special, stand out, and give it 100%.
Well, I'm super impressed and inspired, really, by the way that you've committed to lifelong learning. Whether it's going outside of the discipline to being a project coordinator or going back to school. There's a lot of people that, whether it's pride or ego or just their self-identity, is like, well, I'm this, I'm that. And without that willingness to kind of expand and be a little bit of a Renaissance utility player, sometimes, it's kind of limit your options for sure.
Yeah. And wardrobe, you're schlepping wardrobe, you're carrying stuff, you're shopping, things like that. You're not the designer, not for a long time. So, you've got to work hard and climb the ladder, really.
Yeah. All right. Held Freddie at bay long enough. We're going to get into some of the Michael Jackson questions, starting with the silver glove. And the question is, any insight on, was there a logic, a story, being involved with the sparkly glove? I don't know what the bedazzled glove.
Right. It was, yes, it was.
Did you lose the other one? What happened?
No. Michael just came in one day and said, I want a glove. It was all him. I want a glove, or I want an armband. He just thought it up. He thought it up. But the glove, we had a glove made, and then I took it to Rolando, star-studded, and they were beautiful crystals that were studded on to the glove. And that was the first glove. So, but it was all Michael's idea.
And always a single glove. No logic.
Always a single glove. No, never two.
Awesome.
But I think it might have had to do with the way he gestured with his hat and with his hand when he danced. It was always, that right hand. So
yeah, makes sense. Kind of related, Michael, and the Captain EO set. Someone's asking, how did such a dramatic lighting, room volume, both in terms of the way it's going to be presented as well as the actual set impact the way the costumes were made? Is it kind of hard to compete when you have that such an immersive kind of mise en scene?
Well, if you remember Captain EO, some of the costumes, some of the performers, the dancers, actually the bad guys, come out of the pillars. So they were made with a lot of stuff on them so that they would blend into the set. And then then it was a surprise when they popped out and started to do their thing. Michael's group of peaceful, loving people were all in bright colors to counter the silvers, the grays, the blacks and browns that were in the set and in those other costumes. Also lighting, they had an amazing lighting designer. So that was so it was a lot with the lighting and the camera and angles and things. So yeah. And it was Francis Ford Coppola. What can I say? I mean, and George Lucas there. So,
well, you fit right in there with that creative pool of pretty epic talent. So glad you were there.
My favorite thing was a lot of actors and actresses. Actors come. He was like an actor's actor, Michael. So I walked out of the. I was waiting for the light to go off so I could leave and go back to the costume area outside of the set. And I literally ran into Sophia Loren. That was one of those fun things. Oh, excuse me. She was tall. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
With or without heels, she was still tall.
God, I don't remember. I was in such shock.
All right. So from Michael to the bugs, Veronica Fisher's asking, pieces like Tinkerbell's wing fascinate me. How do you balance character integrity with the fact that kids may grab at such a delicate item?
I didn't know that Tinkerbell walked around. Does she actually walk around in the park, or isn't she just flying? That's interesting.
Yeah, you're right. There's probably a difference between, the parade characters versus
and the flying
I think
one.
they used to have the Pixie Hollow and, some of the fairies certainly, but of course they've got their handlers, but there's only so much you can do with those little kids, those grubby hands.
Right. Well, it needs to be durable. It needs to be, I always say you got to be able to wash mustard and ketchup off of it. So it's probably synthetic and it's wired, but also it needs to be flexible because you don't want a character to turn around suddenly and whack a kid in the head, So,
Sure.
And Tinkerbell's a face character, so meaning it's their person's own face. So so those wings are engineered, so out of either flexible plastic or wire or something, but they also have to be safe. So that's one of those costume / engineering problems.
Yeah, kind of related with the praying mantis costume with SeaWorld. When you're trying to be authentic with insect autonomy or anatomy, and then cladding that in human anatomy. How do you solve that puzzle? That's just so interesting, fascinating.
My concept, kind of long ago, was to incorporate as much of the human body as you can. So, like the praying mantis, it's actually the upper arm of the human that just has a leotard on. And then the lower arms are just gauntlets that they hold on to inside for the pointy praying mantis. So, and like the butterfly, it's kind of the person's own feet. And then I do a sublimated, unitard or something. Like I did a mouse once, and it was for Dancing for Nutcracker, and I had human legs in tights with little pink ballet slippers on, and it looked like a mouse's feet that was dancing. So you need to think outside the box and look at the human figure and sketch over it and see how you can incorporate it. Also, you have to think about them dressing and undressing. So all of the costumes in Abu Dhabi, the characters, the praying mantis and the butterfly, it's all components. So it's a pod, it's arms, it's a leg, greaves, sort of like you would have in armor. And then the tail goes on if there's a tail, like in the praying mantis. And so everything's separate. So you can fit many sizes within a range, and you can get them dressed and undressed efficiently and maintain, and then you can maintain the costumes and do repairs on just a small piece rather than a huge thing. So that's important.
Well, kind of looking at kind of state-of-the-art technology and kind of looking around the corner in the future, any technical advances, gesture recognition, articulated heads, animatronic, AI, voicing, any things that have changed the approach to designing costumes, or any other technologies that you think you're thinking about needing to incorporate in the future?
Well, I met with Animax when they were doing the talking heads. They're great, but you need to have a full-time maintenance person there. They're just really fragile and very expensive. I worked on some Disney Channel shows a long time ago where they had they did their eyes and wiggled their noses with things in their gloves. They could connect it, and then the eyes would, both eyes would go down, or they could do this and just one would wink, kind of a thing. So that already exists. Also, things on audio animatronics. So the track that's playing, say in the parades, is making things happen as it goes. I think light up technology is really good for fabrics that are color changing now. And I think it's all in beta though, and very expensive. So, I mean, I've looked into it and done, designed in lighted stuff. So that's, I keep track of what technology is doing. So yeah, we're waiting.
Glad you are. There's so much new stuff around the corner. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. I just wanted to say, when I was teaching, I told my student, they said, well, how do you design something, totally different? I go, well, there's only so much you can do with fabric and technology we have right now. But when they invent something new, some new kind of fabric, then you're going to be able to think of something else. And a good example is when sportswear came out and all the tech fabrics. Then a whole new area of design came. So that's
fascinating.
Yeah. So keep track of what's happening in the world of fashion and technology at the same time.
Yeah. Keep the ears to the ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, running out of time. One last question here. Kind of just from a hobbyist looking into costume design, any particular books on your bookshelf or resources that you would recommend for someone just really trying to get their bearings on this amazing, vast, fascinating field of costume design?
Well,
book list.
I mean, yeah.
Your memoir.
Yeah. No, I a good basic history of costume book would be good, because if you're just thinking about costuming, also sewing, how to sew, how to make things is important. I have so many books, it just depends on what you want to do. Now, there's a lot of people out there doing cosplay and things, and they're doing a pretty good job, but some of them don't research like the swords or the armor and everything properly. So that's what I suggest, the kind of books you look at so that you really see what's going on. Yeah.
I love it. We got a blast from the past call out. Beverly Cutting said you were her fashion design department director at Brooks College in 1989. So
yeah, that was me. I think I left to go to Puro Land to do Puro Land.
Wow.
Hi. That's so funny. Hi. It's so funny. A lot of my students are still in touch. So that's great. That's really nice.
That's wonderful.
Yeah. I really loved teaching. That was great. So, awesome. Yep.
Well, and then Lisa Passamonte Green, fellow TEA Master, just said thanks for representing, and thanks everyone thanks for joining us, and we could just keep on trucking, but looking forward to spending time with you live face to face.
Yeah.
SAIT, and
yes.
And thank you so much for taking the time out to share.
You're welcome, and thank you everyone.